And welcome aboard, folks. Steve Malzberg here, and I'm happy to introduce my good friend, the one and only Lionel, legal and media analyst, and check him out, Lionel Nation on YouTube. Hello, my friend.
Good to see you,
So
sir.
good to see you. All right, let's get right to it. Big day, final day of the session at the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And big news for Donald Trump, who has claimed victory today. The decision, 6-3 decision, is a ruling that says, okay, you could implement part of the travel ban and we'll take the whole case up in October. Now, I say 6-3. The three dissenters, interestingly enough, Thomas Alito and Neil Gorsuch, which shows you, I believe, and you tell me, you're the expert, where Gorsuch will be aligning himself. He said that the decision is too confusing because the decision said that you could ban these folks from coming into the country unless they have a bona fide relationship with a person or an entity in the U.S., then they must be allowed in. So these three are saying it's too confusing. How are you going to implement this? What's your take on the whole thing?
Makes sense to me. Tenuous, what does that mean? Bona fide. It would seem to me, Steve, and let's think about this. God forbid that somebody might be nefarious. God forbid somebody may be using this to circumvent our laws. Something tells me that Abu Nidal or somebody would say, make sure you have bona fide. Got it. So, but don't be surprised, though, as far as this being the initial configuration of some conservative arm, because you never know. I can go through the list of how judges or justices, once given the robe, can change their mind.
All right, so do you agree with Trump? I mean, this is more or less a victory for the administration?
Absolutely, but then again, it may be moot in October.
Because the whole thing was supposed to be for 90 days.
Right.
So if they start implementing it by October,
right,
you'll be on 90 days.
It's moot. And merely granting cert is one thing, but this is not over with. Because remember, there's one thing, this ban is not illegal. Whatever you call it, however you phrase it, and I must say this, I've never, in my years of following the juridicature of our country, I've never seen, Steve, extrajudicial statements about what Rudy Giuliani said on this show, what Trump tweeted. Sometimes you can go beyond the four corners of a statute to look at legislative intent, but to hear conversational, anecdotal, extrajudicial statements, never heard of it.
And interesting, from what I've heard and read of the decision so far, there is no mention of Trump said, what was his real intent, because Rudy said, and that was what most legal experts, including yourself, predicted, that when it gets to the Supreme Court, that nonsense is going to go bye-bye.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there is nothing inherently unconstitutional with a ban, never has been.
Okay, let's move on. The Supreme Court today blocked, a church was being blocked in Missouri from building a playground for the kids because it was public funds being used, that would have been used, to build the playground. And they said separation of church and state, which is not mentioned in the Constitution. Nonetheless, they were withholding those funds, and the Supreme Court said in a 7-2 opinion that is unconstitutional. This daycare, church daycare, must have the funding to build the playground. Now, I think that's a great decision.
This is an Establishment Clause argument. The separation of church and state was the Thomas Jefferson letter that was referenced anecdotally. But the idea is that the First Amendment prevents the establishment of a religion. That can be the endorsement, the ratification, the validation, the support thereof. And I think it's important, Steve, what we've done historically, just like within God we trust on coinage, to separate connections, references to, support of, with endorsing a monotheistic religion or God or Jesus or whatever. That's really what was talked about. So I think this makes complete sense. And I'm a strict, absolute separationist, if you will. And this to me seems at best trifling.
Okay. Now, the court has agreed to take up the case of the baker, and we've heard a lot of these situations where people refuse to take pictures of a gay wedding, refuse to make a cake. Well, this is someone who refused to make a cake in Colorado. He denied service to a same-sex couple, and he was penalized severely for it. And now the court is going to hear his case next term, and I think this is very important, and it speaks to religious liberty. And where do you draw the line? And I think you and I may disagree on this, but go ahead.
No. what I wish people would do, and I don't want to suggest that somebody do this, but wouldn't it be interesting if at the same time of this, somebody were to contact, let's say, a Jewish bakery and demand that they have a swastika cake or a Nazi cake or a Klan cake or an anti-gay cake? I've never understood how an individual person, a person who pays the taxes and the lights, cannot say, I'm not making a statement about gay marriage, but I don't want to lend my expertise to this messaging. I don't want to do a pornographic cake. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do it. Go someplace else. I'm a private institution. I'm not the government. Since when does a private individual not have the right to say, I don't want to be a part of it?
So this is good news.
Well, it's provided they rule the right way.
Right, but that they're taking it otherwise. But the argument is, and I don't buy it, I agree with you as it turns out, 100%. But the argument is, well, what if they wouldn't do it for a black couple, or what if they wouldn't do it for someone who's white if they're black, or vice versa? That's outlawed and that's against the law.
But here's the thing. I want to hear the particular statute. Is this tantamount to public accommodations? But if you're saying, Supreme Court, that and this is important, I as a baker, I never can believe this, but I as a Cinnabon or somebody, that I must accede to particular orders, but I have no say in general. You mean to tell me that I can turn around, pick up the phone, and again, ask Eisenberg Bagel, I want you to make a Hitler cake. Do you understand the insanity? How can you say yes to this, no to this? The rule should be that the First Amendment, freedom of speech of individual citizens, sometimes lends itself to very uncomfortable cases, and that's the beauty of the republic that we live in.
And this is a religious liberty case, because if you really believe that it's against your religion to participate in this ceremony in any way, you should have the right to opt out.
I go to a Muslim bakery next, and I want you to go to the Muslim bakery, and I want you to ask them.
Right.
I mean, do you really want to extrapolate this to its most ridiculous extreme? I think not, sir.
Yes, I agree. Now, the Supreme Court turned down a case in California. They're not going to review the right to carry firearms outside the home. Two justices dissented from their colleagues are not taking it up, including Gorsuch. So again, Gorsuch is going to be hard right, and I think that's good news. That's good news for me. But I don't know. I think it's good news for people who supported Trump. But this speaks to the Second Amendment, limitations on the Second Amendment, and there are limitations on the Second Amendment. I would like to have seen them take up this case and hear it out and decide, but they're not going to do it.
Well, what happens is, if you ask most people, ever since Heller, they will say that there is absolutely nothing that gives an individual the right. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. No, the Second Amendment talks to militias. No, it doesn't. Heller said that. Scalia, who I miss more, and you will never realize how rational he was. But let me tell you something. The Second Amendment is not going away. And what you're also going to see right now is, maybe with Trump, a lot of people who are not necessarily hunters and NRA people who say it is a fundamental right. And by the way, I think it's a Ninth Amendment that says just because something is not enumerated as a right doesn't mean I don't have that. I believe, and people believe, that they have a natural right under God or nature to protect themselves using what's reasonable. By the way, the Second Amendment, in fact, Scalia talked about this case called affrighting, that you cannot walk around with a war club in your hand, that yes, even using strict constructionist and contextualist ideas, there are limitations inherent in it as far as certain types of weapons. So there is a limitation of the Second Amendment.
Anthony Kennedy, there was a lot of speculation today that Kennedy was going to make an announcement. Now, just because he didn't say I'm leaving doesn't mean he's not going to say it tomorrow or the day after. Sandra Day O'Connor waited 2 days after the session ended. But how big a deal would it be to have Trump be able to replace Kennedy, who's certainly, a moderate? He might lean a little conservative, but he's a moderate, with another Gorsuch.
I hate to say it, but when you look at the cases over an entire career, look at Scalia also, you will be so amazingly surprised that their personalities don't necessarily bleed into it, because sometimes, Steve, what they're asked to, for the most part, asked to decide really has nothing to do with their opinions. It's about looking at the letter of the law, and I don't think I know I'm
No, go ahead.
a bit of a heretic here. I don't think it matters. I think that when it comes down to it, that once a justice is robed, sometimes the framework of look, Roberts in the Obamacare case, he ruled it as a tax. Where did that come from? I can go back through Harry Blackmun, through Whizzer White under Kennedy, through Earl Warren, that once they put that robe on and they say, so let me get this straight, they can't get rid of me yet? Good. I'm going to make myself
Except
up.
look at Sotomayor, look at Kagan, look at, I mean, there are some who are going to go, no matter what the case, they're going to go one way for the most part. So you don't think it would upset the balance tremendously? It won't matter much if he replaces him?
No.
Lionel?
Steve, thank you,
No,
sir.
my pleasure. And everybody on your YouTube channel, tell them again.
Lionel Nation on YouTube.
Lionel Nation, the one and only Lionel, ladies and gentlemen. We go back to WABC. That was in
the 30s.
24 BC.
During the Coolidge administration.
Lionel, folks. Hey, thanks for being out there. Until next time, make sure you stay informed at newsmaxtv.com and the website newsmax.com.